Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'll do a very quick early Act 2 Monster Infrequent video for you. It's a long time since I did the Act 1 Monster Infrequent video. A couple of people have commented in that saying, where's the rest of it? So what we'll do is we'll quickly get into this. Ignore the stuff in this tab, this is just some junk. If you have a look in tab 5, I know I'm in Elite, but all this stuff will drop in normal just at a lower level. If you want any of these things, Spectral Longsword, I'll go into detail in a sec. Spectral Bludgeon, two-handed Spectral War Maul, Spectral Battle Axe, Spectral Arbalest, crossbow thing, that wonderful shield. If you want any of those, there is one place you can go where you can get all that stuff to drop, and it's very early Act 2. The reason why I've got two Spectral Bludgeons here, that's sort of a normal one with two magic affixes on it. I just did a recent video on this aura character and this triple rare drop. Triple rare is where you've got a Monster Infrequent with two rare green affixes. Frostborn of the Sage, that's amazing. It almost makes me want to go back and do yet another Alexa's Flash Freeze Trozen Skyshard build just to use that, because that's really great. But that's just to show you the sort of things it can drop with. So when you farm these things, if the basic weapon suits your build and you've got into Elite and then later Ultimate, you might want to go and over farm these things to try and get what you call perfect affixes. That might not be perfect for every build. There might be some builds that's perfect for. You get the general idea. So this sword thing, if you have a look at that, what you've got with Monster Infrequents, some of them just drop with a few buffs. A +2 to this, a +2 to that, some damage buffs, whatever. Others, in fact, I would go as far as to say the vast majority will drop with something that specifically buffs or converts damage on a skill. If you look at this thing, right at the bottom, it's adding frostburn damage to Rune of Haggarad, which is an Inquisitor skill, but it is adding a whole load of cold damage to Shadow Strike and converting physical damage to cold damage to Shadow Strike. So if you're going to do a cold damage Nightblade early on, get yourself two of those and you'll be laughing, because that's well, all right, the 100% physical damage conversion won't stack. I mean, once you've converted 100%, but if you've got anything else that's converting, any other bit of gear that's converting physical damage off to some other damage type you don't want, having 200% physical damage converted to cold will drastically reduce the other conversions going on to physical damage. You won't completely get rid of them, but it will minimize them. So that's a good thing if you're doing a Nightblade and you want to do cold damage on your Shadow Strike. This thing, Spectral Bludgeon, if you're an Arcanist and you're doing Alexa's Flash Freeze and or Trozen's Sky Shard, that's pretty good. You've got to watch it. It's converting lightning damage to cold on Trozen's. So again, you've got to be thinking, I've got to focus on cold damage for this to be absolutely useful, but it's a really good weapon. That thing totally different. It's a two-handed weapon and it's doing vitality damage. Vitality damage, I do like builds that do vitality damage for some reason. You can get all sorts of fun effects going on, and the devotions, there are some really great devotions that support vitality damage. That thing, if you look at that, it is buffing Siphon Souls, it is buffing Wendigo Totem, putting a whole bunch more vitality damage on Wendigo Totem than it starts off with. That's a Shaman, however you want to pronounce its skill. So that's that thing. Spectral Battle Axe, weapon damage. Anything that adds weapon damage to a skill is really good if you're going for attack damage converted to health, particularly if the skill it's adding weapon damage to doesn't already have weapon damage on it. So that thing, I would ignore the acid damage and the acid conversion from physical. I believe that is on there because it is corrosive. It has a corrosive prefix. You've got to watch this. You've got to be careful when you look at things that people are demonstrating in videos like this. Yours won't necessarily have acid damage on it. It will have cold damage on it though. And it will have, I'm assuming, yeah, +3 to Whirling Death, and that 60% weapon damage to Whirling Death, that'll always be on there. And the +2 to Necrotic Edge and the 60% weapon damage to Necrotic Edge will always be on there. So that's that thing. So that's pretty good. You get two of them. Do a axe dual wielding Nightblade if you want. Necrotic Edge is a necro skill, so if you've got a Nightblade Necromancer combo going on, that would be pretty good for that. Here's another vitality damage thing. Ignore the lightning damage and the electrocute damage nonsense on that. That is because of the Of Thunder. So it's vitality damage. +4 to Phantasmal Blades, and it adds 2 projectiles to Phantasmal Blades. So again, this is a bit of a complicated idea to get your head around, because you would probably be equipping this weapon but maybe using Phantasmal Blades as your main attack and not actually using the weapon to shoot things, because you're using the buffs to Phantasmal Blades. Now, I'll go out on a limb here and say you can get similar buffs to Phantasmal Blades from other sources that don't involve, you know, having to wield a two-handed weapon, but it's entirely up to you. You might see that and think that's great. Again, it's got Necro stuff on it as well. So that's got Nightblade Phantasmal Blades, it's got Necro Spectral Binding, and it's put in 120% vitality damage to Spectral Binding. So that's pretty good. And that 8% casting speed to Spectral Binding, that will speed up your attacks with Phantasmal Blades, I believe. So that's pretty good. Again, I'm not saying these are essential items, go and get them. But if you want to mess about with some weird build, this is a Monster Infrequent, it's always a place to go. Barras Radlith's shield is great. I was using one for a while on this Aura character, as you can see, but it adds cold damage and it adds cold resistance reduction to Veil of Shadow. It adds a bunch of stuff to Iskandra's Elemental Exchange, which is an Arcanist skill. It also buffs Alexa's Flash Freeze, which is an Arcanist skill. So if you want to go full on Alexa's Flash Freeze and enjoy the fun of finding the enemies that are totally resistant to it, get that shield, get that weapon, all from the same place, and all of a sudden you've got a load of massive buffs to Alexa's Flash Freeze. So that's all that stuff. Before I look at anything else, let's just show you where this stuff comes from. You've got to head over to the east. I'll speed this footage up. And you go into this cave. So that's where I came from. That's where the cave is. There's 2 entrances to it. It's the easiest one to get to once you've got that area opened. Spined Cove, it's a circular area. There's a shrine in here, so grab that first time you come in. You can run round whichever way you want to run, anti-clockwise, clockwise. And it's full of these ghosts. And they drop all of those weapons if you kill Radlith as well. There you go, there's a Spectral Battle Axe. Okay, so those guys do drop it. It's not just Radlith, he dropped one then. It's a reflective guy. Yeah. He's trying to reflect my aura damage and he's failing dismally. He has a Spectral War Shield. Right, okay, that's another one. Didn't have that drop the first million times I came through. There's something else that drops in here. That's brilliant. If you're going to do a Drain Essence build, get one of those things. Look at that. Minus 30% skill energy cost to Drain Essence. That's right at the bottom of that list of buffs and stuff on that. And it adds retaliation damage into Drain Essence, which is a bit bizarre. And it will adds a chance of affecting more targets to Drain Essence, so you can stand in a group and just like spam Drain Essence, wipe everyone out. So that's real good. I haven't had that drop in about 50 billion farming runs through here, so yeah, you'd be lucky if you get one of them, but you might get one. There's Radlith. See if he drops his shield. Not this time. Right, never mind. Anyway, you get the idea. You run round in here, you kill all these ghosts, and you get a chance of that, this, that, all that crazy stuff. There's another one of those things. So I've got 2 of them now. Right, let's get rid of some of this stuff. It's cluttering up my flipping demonstration. Right, moving swiftly on. So that's a whole load of gear that will suit loads of different builds that you can come into this small area, target farm this area, kill these ghosts, get all this stuff. What you might find is you might get something really cool drop like that. Sorry, no pun intended. And you might stick that in stash and think, one day I'll do a build that will use that. Arguably, getting that to drop in Ultimate at a really high level would be better than a level 70 item. But if you've got that to look forward to while you're leveling up and running around, it's great when you get to that point. You can equip that and go, God, check me out. Right, so that's that stuff all in here. Let's talk about some of this stuff. Halion's Crest, Balthazar's Crest, Martin's Crest. There's 3 medals. They're all cowboy medals. Let's do, where's Balthazar's gone? Balthazar's, if we go back where I came from, which is here, Nicholas Balthazar, when you first play the game on your first character and you have to get dynamite, it will send you into a cave where Nicholas Balthazar is the boss and he's near the dynamite, so you will either have killed him or been killed by him. You'll know the guy I'm talking about. I've obviously killed him to get that thing. I mean, all those things that I showed you, these are all stuff that I either luckily had hanging around in my inventory from normal, or I went and got in. Yeah, you can see I came in through that one. That's where I was coming in through that one, farming him from the other direction. But Nicholas Balthazar is down here. The reason why I got all that stuff up front was I didn't want to come in here and kill him and find he didn't drop it. He's quite tough, actually. Well, I'm over leveled for this area, but he's still pretty tough. He didn't drop it, so it doesn't matter. Grab the dynamite, grab more dynamite. Yeah, so what he could drop that thing. No, he can't. That's Martin's. There it is. Balthazar's Crest. It's not particularly impressive. It's kind of okay. If you're doing a if you're doing a commando that's using Blade Arc, I mean, yeah, feel free, do a commando that's a soldier and demolitionist that's using Blade Arc, and you'll have a bit of extra physical damage on Blade Arc, and you'll have physical damage added into Flame Touched. Flame Touched buffs your weapon attack, so you'll get all that extra physical damage on Blade Arc, and you'll get that 120 or whatever it is on, because it's not always going to be that value. I mean, this is all to do with what my buffs are scaling those figures to. So it's not the best item ever. I can't imagine anyone thinking, yeah, I've got to go and farm that. But hell, if you wake up one day and you want to do a physical damage commando, yeah, go for it. Grab one of those things. Halion's Crest, a little bit further up now. If you go up to the Old Arkovia Rift up by Quaid's camp, there's a Hammerfee mine, which is, there's a quick way to get to the Hammerfee mine. It's straight up here. It's that entrance I'm heading to. There's a sign outside that says Hammerfee mine. So you go in here and you find Halion and his pet rat. Get away. You can usually tell where they are because everything's green and shiny, and there's all sorts of, there he is, look at all that lot. That's his rat. Rat's down. There's Halion. Halion the rat. These boys need to shut up and go away. So, alright, he's down. He's dropped it. Okay, so that's alright. So what you can see there, Halion's Crest. So I got two now. Well, that's the one I picked. Actually, that's Balthazar, so it's Halion's. There's Halion's. Halion's Crest of the Wild. That is really good because it's a pet item. Right, what I'll do temporarily is stick that one on so we can see both of them. Right, so that's the one on the right, Occultist's Halion's Crest of Readiness. And then on the left, Stalwart Halion's Crest of the Wild. Of the Wild is a pet suffix. So if you look at the one on the right, bonus to all pets, offensive ability, reduce mind control duration. That's the default stuff it comes with. So the offensive ability and the mind control you always get. The other stuff is because of that of the wild thing. So if you were looking for a pet one and that dropped with of the wild, you'd think, yeah, that's great, I got what I want. You know it will drop with pet stuff, so maybe target farm it if you want that. It's basically buffing Summon Hellhound, Conjure Primal Spirit, Summon Briarthorn. It's putting attack speed on Hellhound, and it's getting your Conjure Primal Spirit to live a bit longer. I mean, it's all right as an early pet item. You know he drops that, you could go and get that. The last one was Martin's Crest. If Martin is not right at the start of this area, I won't bother going in any further because he could be right at the end and it's going to be really dull watching me run through. I know I could edit it, but sometimes he spawns here. Not today. Right, so that's another MI I'm going to talk about in a minute. Moneybags Martin is a boss that is always in Cronley's lair. Sometimes he spawns near the start, sometimes he's like halfway through in the middle, sometimes he's right at the end in this bit before you go in and kill, sorry, that's where Cronley is, in this bit before you kill Cronley. So he might be there, he might be in the middle. There's three places I think he can spawn in here, and he'll drop this thing, Martin's Crest. Again, ignore the ether stuff on that, that's from that ether fire prefix. The main reason you'll get this is if you're playing a Demolitionist and you want the fire damage to thermite mine and the plus 12 seconds to thermite mine, so your thermite mines stay around on the screen longer. I don't know whether you'd want physical damage converted to lightning to Rune of Callistor. You might do. I think you're more likely to come and get this for your thermite mine buffs than for your Rune of Callistor buffs, but it's entirely up to you. You know it does that, so come and get it if you want it. So that's those 3 medals sorted out. You know where you get them from. That's not a Monster Infrequent, but it kind of technically is. That drops off the guys that fight in Boris's fighting pit. I just put it on here because it's another medal. It's kind of obeys the conditions for being a Monster Infrequent, but I don't know whether the game actually sees it as a Monster Infrequent. If you want one of them, you have to fight things in Boris's fighting pit, which is usually not a good idea. Right, Ronaprax's Sting. Anyone who's looked at the one-shot bosses build, who has tried to do that build, would probably pick one of these things up. Again, nip to Quaid's Camp Rift, the Old Arkovia Rift, and head south. So you come out of here and you go down here. I'll speed the footage up. Right, so you've come down to this bee's hive, you go in here. Ronaprax only has 1 spawn location, and that's kind of over there. So head to the right if you can. Depends on the block paths. Out the way, bees. Yeah, it's why my level kind of rocketed up across videos, because I did so much farming for these items while I was using an XP pot. I'm not saying do it that way, I'm saying that's what I did. Oh, I swapped my flipping... Hang on a sec. What a prat. There you go. I lost my... I almost died. I lost my movement skill because I swapped the medal over. So that was Ronaprax. Ronaprax didn't drop her Sting, but it doesn't matter because I got one, you know, previously on. If you're doing Dreeg's Evil Eye build, go and get one of them. 28% weapon damage to Dreeg's Evil Eye is wonderful. The fact that it adds retaliation damage in, well, maybe you're not even doing retaliation damage. 90% weapon damage to Aegis of Menhir, 50%, right. So that, it almost makes me want to try and do an Aegis of Menhir build. That's Oathkeeper. My own personal reasons, I kind of don't really like Oathkeeper. Don't let that put you off. It's a really good mastery, and combined with Soldier, it can be like the strongest character you play. But that 90% weapon damage to Aegis of Menhir makes me kind of want to do that, because you could get some crazy attack damage converted to health on Aegis then. Right, anyway, so that's what that does. It's a retaliation thing, and it's also a Dreeg's Evil Eye buff. So that's that. That's a decent amulet in here, I think. I've covered that screen of garbage. Right, next screen of garbage, the Cowboys stuff. This video is only really covering things that go up to Cronley's Lair. That's up there. Again, we start from here. And there will be some Monster Infrequents in this area that I've missed out. I'm sorry about that, but this stuff seemed to be the things that I wanted to talk about most. All this stuff you get from, well, that's Cronley's ring. Darius Cronley is the hard stop boss that you've got to kill, unless you've got merit, to get past, to get into the Twin Falls area at the end of Cronley's Lair. He has a chance to drop Cronley's signet. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff on that you wouldn't normally get, because it's got that Lightbringers and of the Boar on it, but it is, I think, the Laceration and Circle of Slaughter stuff's always on there. It's a bleeding damage thing, because it's stained with the blood of his victims, now joined by his own. So yeah, I think it's a bleed damage item. Now, talking about the bleed damage items, the Cowboys, as you run up towards Cronley's Lair and inside Cronley's Lair, there are different types of Cowboys. This set, it's a weird set, because it's not, I don't think you'd equip all that and think it was a set. That thing is doing bleeding damage to Blade Trap and Ring of Steel. So that's pretty much what that thing does. That's converting vitality damage to piercing, and it's buffing Blade Trap, Phantasmal Blades, and I think Horn of Gandar. I've got to be careful with this, just in case the affixes are adding stuff and I'm misleading you. So that's a bleeding thing, that's a piercing thing, and that's just weird. Again, it's, yeah, I've got to watch it. It's Saboteurs. Let me just check, hold on just one sec. Yeah, the only things that comes with by default is the top 3, Dual Blades, Shadow Strike and Blood of Dreeg. That Blackwater Cocktail and Blade Trap, that's because of the, I suspect that's because of the Saboteur prefix, and the Of Decay is what has added the vitality damage in. So you're normally just going to get the pierce damage stuff and Dual Blade, Shadow Strike and Blood of Dreeg on that. So they're not, you wouldn't necessarily put those on. They're not like a set that buffs all the same stuff, so you've got to be careful what you do with that. This thing, that's really good. If you're doing a Demolitionist with Fire Strike, you get one of them and you won't find anything better than that for ages. It's just really good. The fact that it's putting all that fire damage onto Fire Strike and improving the crit damage on it, it's amazing. And if you get one of them as well, it's kind of more of a Blackwater Cocktail thing because of that buff on it. But again, it doesn't buff any particular skill straight off. That actually has a specific skill buff. The Flames of Ignifar and the Fire Strike buff, that doesn't. It's just got overall fire damage buffs on it. Be careful if you're doing chaos damage build, because it's always got a conversion on it that converts chaos damage away into fire damage. Just be aware of that. If you're relying more on chaos damage than fire damage, if you're doing a Pyromancer, late game you're swapping from fire damage to chaos damage, you may not want to be using that because it will be detrimental. But those things, yeah, so those Cowboys, I mean, if you run up here and get into Cowboy land, you'll start seeing that stuff drop. Again, I'll speed the footage up and run up. Actually, it's gonna, that fighting pit I was talking about, who's in there? Oh, yeah, I'm not going to bother with them. They can be a real nightmare. But, talking of the fighting pit that I just went past, I do have to show you one other thing that I'm sure is in my inventory somewhere. There it is. Right. Let's put it on with the Cowboy stuff. So that, if you kill Boris in the fighting pit, he's got a chance to drop the Pitmaster's axe. So that's alright. Pretty sure, oh look at that, 50% weapon damage to blade arc. So that's alright. They're not the best weapons ever, but again, if you get them dropped with affixes that match your build, they could be the best weapon ever. But I doubt it very much. But that's from Boris in the pit. See if I can get any of these Cowboys to drop any of this stuff. Quickly run round. Yeah, there you go, look. Hang on, let's just get these boys up here. If I can get close enough and fry him. There you go. There's a Murderer's Cowl, so they just drop that thing. That's that thing there. It's a Nightblades as well. Yeah, look at that. That's alright actually, because it's buffing Nightblade skills by default. It's also got a Veil of Shadow buff on it, whereas the one I've got hasn't got that. It's got bloody pots because of the occultist prefix. That's actually pretty good. Let's pick that boy up. See if I can mess my build up. There you go. So there's the two of them. You can see the difference there. You've got an occultist one on the right. It's got bloody pox on it. You've got a Nightblades one on the left. It's got Veil of Shadow added on, which isn't on by default. Yeah, do you know what? I'm such a prat. The only way, this is something interesting actually, go off a bit of a tangent here, because I was wearing that, it needs 474 spirit, but it's actually got a massive spirit buff on it. So what you do is you raise your spirit high enough that you can equip it, and then undo the points you put in. And it's okay because it's now providing, you can't put it on there if you can't equip it. But once you equip it, the buffs it's got, that spirit and the plus 7% spirit, have whacked my spirit up to 500 and something without me putting any points in. So I do it again just in case you missed that. Right, so I got 434. It needs 474, so I can't equip it. So I crank that up to 476, equip it, undo the points. It's not cheating, it's exploiting the game mechanic. If that's got like a red background though, it means that it's not doing anything even though you've managed to equip it. There you go. So that was pretty good, that example, because those boys there have dropped the shoulders and the hat. They all dead? Right, so those guys in there, there's the Incendiary shoulder plates, that's that thing. There's the Incendiary cask, that's that thing. So they've just dropped both of those there. So yeah, they got pretty good drop rates, this stuff. So that's the fire stuff. We've had one of the murderer items, might get another one. But again, if you run through this cowboy area from that old Arkovia rift up to the start of Cronley's Lair and go into Cronley's Lair, run through there, you've got a really good chance of getting that stuff dropped. Right, that's enough of that, I think. So that's all. Yeah, so that's that murderer set. It's not a set. When you call it, it's all murderers, but they're not all. I wouldn't think you'd equip all that at the same time, unless you were messing about and just wanted to look the part. So there's those things. Cronley's ring. That's killed Darius Cronley at the end, and he's got a chance to drop that. That's all that stuff from that cave. So there's a couple of, sorry, those are all from individual places. That's from the fighting pit, from bosses in there. I don't think Boris drops it, not sure. One of them drops that. Ronaprax's stinks, that's all that stuff. Now, I whizzed through that really quickly. Hopefully it gave you the information you need about some of the stuff you want to target farm if you're thinking, where do I get an item that will buff such and such a skill? Because it's all very near the start of Act 2, because there's DC, you come in, it was all, that cave's near there, the rest of the stuff is between that rift and up there. Ronaprax is just south of that, so it's all the early Act 2 stuff before you beat Cronley and get into the next bit. After that is a whole load of other stuff, but that was that. I hope you liked that video. Let me know in the comments if this is the sort of stuff that is useful, and if there's any Monster Infrequent explanations you want me to do, and I'll catch you all in the next video.